Okay, the rice. Now, the instructions on this rice, always obey the instructions on the rice. I'm not gonna say it again. Always obey the instructions on the rice. The manufacturer, they know best, and they know that 1.5 cups of rice, right? That must mean we need to prepare our measuring cups, okay? Obviously we need a pot, and I'll show you what this strainer is for in a second. So 2 cups of water. Oh, so we need a liquid measuring cup. This is for things like flour, rice, anything that's solid, not wet. Anything that's wet that you need to measure, you measure in here. Of course, you can measure the rice in here, but we use this for liquid measure. Okay? Now that we have these, I'll tell you what I'm using this strainer for. So every time I make rice, rice has a lot of dust on it because it's in this bag, it's rubbing against each other, it's making dust. And what we need to do is we need to draw that dust off so we get a nice fluffy rice instead of a mushy rice, because all that dust will turn to mush. And it said 1.5 cups. And I assume we're making 1 serving or a few servings, whatever they recommend. And we're gonna measure out 1 cup of rice with the 1 cup measure. Now, it is important that when you measure with these cups that you get nice and flat, okay? Look, see? It's not going over the top. It's not under this top part. It's straight, all right? So I'm gonna measure out my rice and I'm going to put it in here, okay? Here we have 1.5 cups of rice. I'm gonna throw them in this fine mesh strainer. It will not work with like a colander or pasta strainer. It's gotta be fine like that, okay? And what I'm gonna do, okay, is I am going to rinse this rice off. I'm going to rinse all the dust off of it. Okay, so how I do that, so I'm just gonna have the water running, cold water running over it. And you see that water, how it's murky already? That's all the dust coming off. Okay, I can turn our water off. I have the pot in the clean sink. Make sure the sink is clean. I'm gonna shake the rice around for a minute. I'm gonna leave that there and I'm gonna think about what I can do next. I'm done with these. I use them to measure rice. They are clean. So, take them while I'm waiting for that rice to just fully come off. I'm going to put them back, okay? Now, let's take this moment to measure our water. Okay, we know we need 2 cups of water. 1 and 2. Make sure you have this on a flat surface. And you can see that the measurement, once that stops moving, is right at 2 cups, okay? So that's where we're gonna keep it. All right, it's been about 1.5 minutes. I think we can drip this rice off. Okay, make sure you give it a nice little shake so all that water drips off. And you see all that murkiness? That would have made the rice mushy. And I'm gonna just place it right here because we know we're gonna be putting that in. I'm going to dump this out. So the directions on this rice say we need to cover, so we have a cover for our pot, and simmer for 20 minutes. Simmer, not boil, but simmer. So there's little bubbles coming up to the top. We'll show you what that looks like until liquid is absorbed. Remove heat. Let's stand covered for 10 minutes. So we're gonna put the rice in, and we're gonna put the water in, okay? This can go in the sink, and we'll take care of it when we have a moment. This gets covered, and I'm gonna put this on the back burner, okay? And what we're going to do is we are going to turn on the stove, and we're gonna put it on high at first, and we're gonna keep our eyes out. All right, so it said 20 minutes. So what we're gonna do is we are going to set a timer. I'm gonna say for 16, and we're 16 minutes and 45 seconds, sure. Okay, we have that ready to go. So I'm not gonna start it yet. We're gonna wait till that's at a boil. Now, while we have a moment, we are going to re-sanitize our countertop because we put that pot bottom on it, didn't we? So, the rice, re-sanitize, re-sanitize. Okay. Remember, when you're cooking at home, please do take it slow, okay? It's important that you take it slow when we're learning. We are at home. This is the place, if any, that we're supposed to make mistakes. You should make most of your mistakes while cooking at home. You're gonna put the rice away, and we got a little rice on the stove top. So in order not to create a mess, we're gonna clean as we go. While our rice is waiting to boil, let's set up our station for cutting our garlic, okay? So what do we need? We need, first and foremost, a wet or damp, not wet, paper towel. And why we need this, here, wring it out, right? Why we need this to put under the cutting board so that while we're cutting, see the cutting board, if I'm cutting here, right? No bueno. But I can put a wet paper towel under there. Sturdy. Now, we're gonna get our garlic. How much do we wanna use? Well, before we touch that food, let's wash our hands again. We're listening, and I can hear this is a soft boil. So what I'm gonna do is reduce the heat, right? We're turning the heat down. And we're gonna only simmer it, okay? So we're gonna put that on low. We're going to start that timer. So our timer is going, okay? I could take it off the heat to soften it a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna take it off the heat for a second. Reduce that to low. And you can put this partially on here too. You know, you can hang the pot off the edge. Not if you have a gas stove, but if you have an electric stove like this, it works kind of like what's called a French top. Okay, so as we can see, that is not a simmer, that's a boil. We want to bring it down to a simmer, so let's keep an eye on that. Now, let's get to cutting this garlic. We want to hone our knife. Remember, this isn't a sharpener. We just want to lightly press this. If you're good with angles, we want to have this. These are knives with 18-degree blades. So we want to have that at 18 degrees and just let the weight of the knife glide across it. And what this does is this essentially unfolds the blade and makes the knife remain sharp. When we walk with the knife, we hold it down at our hip, Okay. Okay, we have our knife and we've got our garlic. Let's take a few cloves out, right? I think that's just about all we need. Garlic is a very strong flavor. We're gonna put it away. And remember, we're taking our time, okay? This is not a race. This isn't MasterChef. I'm going to cut the garlic in two different ways, just to show you. We have minced garlic, right? Just roughly coarsely minced garlic. And we have the beautiful garlic chip. And this will add a little, it's like your food is brushing its hair, right? We're gonna add a little visual to it. But if you have a garlic press, just mince the garlic through the garlic press. We want to avoid using this if we don't have to. But I wanted to. So anyway, let me show you how to do these two things. To mince, if you do not have a garlic press, I suggest you use a garlic press. But if you do not have one, you can use the back end of the knife that isn't sharp. It is not sharp, okay? But you have to be very careful because this sharp part is facing up at you, okay? Anyway, just like you're cutting it, little by little, crush the garlic with the back of the knife. This is a handy trick that I learned in culinary school, okay? And then just give it a couple cuts, right? Just to separate everything. Now, garlic chips. What we're gonna do is we're gonna find a flat end of the garlic where it's not rolling around, right? And we're just gonna cut thin little slices. Thin, 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 right? Thin, thin, thin. Okay, it's important that we separate all of our stuff so we give ourselves a little room and we can clean as we go. Very carefully if you're gonna lift this with the knife. Place this, and so those are ready to use. This is mise en place. Okay, so let's put it next to our mushrooms and let's bring this over. Okay, I'm gonna put this at my waist. I'm going to clean the knife right away because if you don't, you'll be leaving it in the sink. We never leave the knife in the sink, ever. It's the most dangerous thing. So we're rinsing this knife. We're gonna polish it nice and clean and it will be ready for use another day. Okay, we're putting it back in the block or wherever it goes, right? Ta-da! Now, let's get this over here. We can cook the mushrooms and the spinach ahead of time. Let's check on our rice, okay? Let's give it a little fluff, stir. Not quite ready yet. I'm gonna preheat our pans. All right, so let's get these on medium-low heat and let them get nice and hot before we put anything in them. Ah, our timer went off. So let's check this out here. Cool, we set our timer for early. And this rice seems like it is almost done. So let's give it a little fluff. Let's give it a couple more minutes. Give it a couple more minutes. And then we're gonna turn the heat off. As you can see, I have all of my vegetable ingredients right here, ready to go in the pan. Now, while I have those couple more minutes, I'm gonna prepare our eggs and we should be ready to roll with those hot pans. Cook everything up and plate it. Okay, raw eggs. Anything that raw eggs touch needs to be sanitized, okay? Anything that anything touches needs to be sanitized. Let's throw this away. We're cleaning as we go. And I think we could let this set. So let's turn the heat off. I'm gonna start with my dry ingredient. One thing I didn't mention is that we're gonna add sugar for Tamago style eggs. That is a key ingredient. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna put a teaspoon and maybe a little dab more of sugar. This is a sweet dish, right? Okay, I've got the sugar. And we're gonna put the same amount of this. 1. And just a dab more. 2, okay? It's a strong flavor, so be careful. Coconut aminos, this is just what I substitute for soy sauce, but you can use this in place of soy sauce. But soy sauce. Okay, carefully measure out 1 teaspoon and just a little dab more. Okay, now that we have that taken care of, we can put these near our other ingredients because we're going to use them at the stovetop. Throw this and whip your eggs. Whip them well so they get nice little air bubbles. It'll make very fluffy eggs. All right, now that the eggs are whipped, let's take that and put it in the sink. So we have all of our ingredients here ready to go into these hot pans. That heat is off. And without further ado, let's get cooking. I just made raw eggs on this countertop. So what am I gonna do? I am going to re-sanitize again. All right, be patient with this. You need to re-sanitize. Okay. Well, let's wash our hands. First, we start with mushrooms, right? And spinach and garlic. The first thing that we are going to do is put some oil in the pan. And so I'm going to use olive oil. You can use vegetable oil. In fact, I suggest you use just plain vegetable oil. Right? We don't need much oil in this pan. Only enough to coat the bottom. Okay? And we might as well put some oil in this pan too. It's nice and hot. And reduce the heat on this one to low, because this one is what we're going to cook the eggs with. We're going to have that setting aside. So, the mushrooms, crank the heat up a little bit. Give it a second. Alrighty, this pan is nice and sizzling hot. And ready to receive our mushrooms. So, when we cook mushrooms, it is important that we do not overload the pan. We're not filling this thing with mushrooms. We are putting a few in there. And once they shrink, you can add a little bit more, okay? But there needs to be space. Mushrooms need to breathe, like we all do, right? Personal space. And as they shrink, you can add a couple more, but they need room. So we make sure these mushrooms are getting nice and good. I don't suggest trying that, but what you can do is stir it with a wooden spoon. When you're using a non-stick pan, it is very important that you do not use a metal utensil. No, no, no. That is not good, because that could scratch the non-stick pan and then it won't be non-stick anymore. And it will last 1/10 of the time. So don't do that. Use a wooden spoon or a rubber spatula. We'll use this for the eggs, so I'll set it aside. Oh, look. This one says crazy cat lady. I don't even have a cat. Okay. So just keep those moving, right? These mushrooms, they're coming along pretty nicely. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set these aside because I don't need them anymore, okay? I'm just gonna put them real quick. I'll put them back in a plastic bag later, but we'll put them back in the fridge. Now that our mushrooms are almost done, let's think about what we're gonna add next. We're going to add next the garlic chips and the garlic, and I will explain why we're adding the garlic before the spinach right now. But what you need to know is that garlic cooks very quickly. So we need to keep that in mind, and we need to have the spinach ready for when the garlic is cooked. So now I like to add a small additional dab of oil, very small. Do a little tornado with the mushrooms. These look like they're almost ready for the next ingredient. Which one do you think will cook faster? I think the smaller one will cook faster, so let's add the large one. Shake it around a little bit. Be very careful when you're doing this because these mushrooms are hot, right? We have it still on medium heat. Oh, I could smell it. Ooh, you could probably smell it through there. All right, let's let that chill for a second. I'm gonna increase the heat momentarily. Done. You put it away. Now, hold this cutting board out. Remember to clean as we go. And remember, if you keep your eye on this, you won't regret it. Yeah, it's getting hot in here. Okay. Clean as we go. We're gonna re-sanitize this countertop. Just briefly, right? Okay. Now, let's add this. And be ready very quickly to add that spinach. Okay. All right. Make sure we don't burn that garlic. Before we add that spinach, we're gonna add a touch of aji mirin, just a little bit, just to add a little moisture to the pan. Essentially, this is rice wine. And a little bit of soy sauce, right? And this will get the flavors off of the bottom of the pan before you do anything. Now, let's add a handful of spinach. Now this cooks very quickly, so be careful with it. Okay, make sure you mix it around. Okay. So, it's already shrinking. We'll add a little bit of salt. And that'll help the moisture come out. And a little bit of pepper. Just a dab. So as soon as these spinach wilt almost all the way, take that off the heat. Now, we've set this aside. We've got somewhat of a clean area here. We're gonna keep the adjamirin out. Okay, make sure everything is clean. Then we're gonna start our eggs. Finally, in this preheated pan, make sure it's nice and hot. I can see that it's come to the smoke point. I'm gonna take it off and I'm going to add the eggs, and make sure you have this ready. They should sizzle. Give it a little shake. Okay. That is important if you want this not to stick, right? Make sure you don't touch it. You can get the eggs, there are the edges, right? And this will be very quick. So be ready to take this off the heat as soon as you're done. Okay. You know what I didn't do is I didn't rotate the oil onto the side of the pan. So right there it's sticking. Okay. Give it a little shake to keep those air bubbles going. Patience. As soon as that seems about 2/3 cooked through, kind of rotate it around the edges. Push down on the edge. All right. Now fold. See? It's got that nice brown, golden brown, right? Don't play with it too much. That's the biggest mistake people make with eggs, is that we touch them too much. See, I'm just very lightly stirring it. Take it off the heat. So with sushi rice, before we serve it, we want to stir it. First fluff it, right? Ooh, this is nice. This came out good. Stir it and put a dab of adjamirin to season it. Okay, it doesn't need much. Now, if you want to get real fancy, take a little bowl like this. Put a little bit of cooking spray in there so it doesn't stick. Take your rice and pack that bowl tight. Okay. Make it flat. And put this down. We go straight on to the plate. See? Next, let's put our protein on there. See, those eggs are nice and fluffy, and they're nice and sweet, Tamago, Japanese Tamago style. And finally, we've got our spinach, which wasn't overcooked. Turned out just right. It should have a nice green color. It shouldn't be brown. Shouldn't be very dark green. This was just an afterthought, but I wanted to garnish this dish with a little bit of green onion. It's a very popular ingredient in Asian cuisine altogether, but Japanese cuisine, you see these nice, you know, little cut at a bias. So this was just an afterthought. Folks, make sure your kitchen looks really, really good before you go and eat. These are ready to be done. So after I eat, I'm gonna do those. Countertops are clean. Your pans are here, right? Because they're hot and they're ready to wash. And we've got our rice that we put away to save for later. And later I'll show you how to make fried rice out of that leftover rice. All right, without further ado, I'm hungry. I'm gonna eat. I'll see you later.